Well, I'm here to talk about social skills, which might be the right follow-up to Sorrel's talk. Let me start off by saying, just by way of background, that hopefully none of you are good at math, but when I took my first course in college on autism, which was in the early 80s, but don't count, the little teeny tiny section on autism in my abnormal psychology book basically said, these are children for whom there is nothing that you can do. And I'm not a parent of a child with special needs, but that struck me. That was the one thing I remembered from my freshman class in psychology was, how could anybody tell me there is a child that there's nothing I can do to help them or anybody can do to help them? And that kind of started my passion for working with children with all levels of autism. At that time, of course, autism was thought to really be more of the classical autism. We didn't know about Asperger's at the time. But it's always been my interest in knowing, how do you get a group of people that I was trained in being told they're not interested in having friends, and they're not interested, and they don't have emotions, and they don't understand what other people think and feel, and they have no empathy, and this is all the stuff that I was taught. And then I started working with children and young adults and thought, well, this is nothing like what was described in my textbook. These are people who have amazing amounts of passion and interest and desire to get along. They might just show it in a different way, but it was clearly there. And so social skills really became my interest, and that's what I spent most of my career doing. And that is really trying to figure out, how do you teach something that was never taught to you? So we all kind of know, if some kid came up to us and said, I don't understand how to do this math problem, we can kind of remember, I remember what I did in math, I remember what the teacher did to help me, but nobody taught me to make eye contact, nobody taught me how to play with a doll, nobody really taught me how to make a friend. So how do you teach something that you weren't necessarily taught? You didn't take that class. It's just this intuition that all of a sudden we have to stop and say, wait a minute, how do I know that? And we still don't have the answer. There isn't anything that I can say to you, here's the manual on how to teach social skills. And kind of as Sue said, there is nothing, not one book, not one manual, not one idea, not one theory, not one philosophy that will work for all children. But for me, I do think social skills really is one of those core strategies that we want to work on, or core skills that we want to develop, because what research has shown is that people on the spectrum who feel like they have better social skills and who feel more connected, whether it's to one person, whether it's being able to pursue their passion well and being accepted within that job, you know, being a video game designer, as we all know, half of the kids, that's what they want to do, is go on and design video games, and that's great if that's what they can do. That we really need to figure out a way that, how are we going to be able to teach these children so that they can become who they want to become? And Stephen Shore just said it, none of us are hermits. So we all have to figure out a way to get along with somebody. It might not be having 100 friends. It might be, how am I going to get along with my boss? How am I going to deal with the guy in the next cubicle who keeps snapping his gum? How am I going to do all of this? How can I get labels for my emotions? How can I develop my emotional vocabulary so I can explain to other people why something bothers me, or why I need space, or why I need you to repeat something in different words? All of these things, I need to be able to do this to be successful, so that I can find my own happiness, and I can find my highest level of interdependence, which up until Stephen said that, we all would have said independence, but I too liked that phrase of his. And for me, the idea of teaching social skills that, you know, in 10 minutes, what can I really tell you? Other than that, social skills isn't something that has to be taught out of a book, okay? Regional centers is obviously, as Sorrel just said, a lot of kids now are being pulled out of their social skills programs. They're once a week, you know, outpatient social skills groups. We want schools to take on social skills training, but we also know that with No Child Left Behind, teachers are now being told, teach to the test, teach to the test. Guess what? There's no social skills on the test. There's nothing on that test. There's a lot of things that are about reading, writing, and arithmetic, that old-fashioned idea of the 3 R's, but there's no social skills. And teachers want to teach it, but when? when am I going to find that 30 minutes? And this is what I'm going to say, and this is my takeaway message in the remaining 5 minutes. Social skills doesn't have to be taught out of a book, and it doesn't have to be taught in a structured 30 minutes, this is social skills time. Because every minute of every day we are in a social situation, and that is a time that we can be using to structure and teach social skills. It's through anything that the child wants to do, any interaction. I have a client, I think it's great how much the arts have been talked about today. I have a client that I've worked with for the last 8 years. She happens to be a brilliant artist. She taught herself facial expressions by studying Japanese anime and initially just copying it. And then she would say to me, does this face look happy to you? And I would say, yes. And then she would just start to change the eyes a little bit and say, what about now? And she taught herself all of this kind of stuff, obviously with some therapeutic input. But that was how she was going to learn it. She wasn't going to learn it sitting in a classroom, and she wasn't necessarily going to learn it in a once-a-week, isolated, structured, let's just role play. She had to learn it that way. I've had so many kids obsessed with video games who we play Roller Coaster Tycoon together. What is Roller Coaster Tycoon? You have to design your own theme park. And your theme park is going to close if you don't think about what are other people what's going to make people want to come to your theme park. Okay? If you forget to put in bathrooms, people aren't going to stay at your theme park. If all your rides are too scary and all of the characters start vomiting, your theme park is going to close. You have to develop theory of mind. But this is great. Your kids are there. They're playing video games. You can use that. When we watch TV, we talk about why is the camera here and now there. The camera is the eyes. This is what most people do with their eyes. You can teach social skills at any time. And what we need to do is get teachers, parents, and everybody to feel like, you know what, I am empowered to teach this. And until such time as all of these structured programs can be put back into place. But I'm a fan of teaching social skills outside of the structured setting anyway. This is really where we have to go now, and we have to find those teachable moments. We have to train our teachers to find those teachable moments, not to be afraid that, you know what, if the child's not raising his hand and calling out, how is that a teachable moment for social skills? Because it is. They're in a social environment almost every minute of the day, and we can be teaching things at that moment, and that's what I have to say. Thank you.